Welcome back to Celestial Scrolls, where ancient Chinese myths and legends come alive through storytelling. Today, we continue our epic journey with Chapter 40 of Journey to the West, the Mirror Realm of Infinite Selves. In our previous episode, Tang Sanzang and his disciples completed their first mission as eternal servants of wisdom, helping the realm of forgotten dreams transform into Foundation Town by gently demonstrating that adequacy can serve as a base for growth, rather than a barrier against it. They learned the delicate art of rekindling hope through patient presence and authentic example. This chapter takes our transformed heroes into perhaps their strangest adventure yet, a realm where infinite versions of themselves exist simultaneously, each representing a different choice or path they might have taken. Here they'll discover that true wisdom sometimes requires confronting not just who they are, but who they might have been, and learning to integrate the lessons from lives unlived. If you've been following our heroes through their eternal journey of service and discovery, you won't want to miss this mind-bending exploration of possibility, choice, and the infinite nature of consciousness itself. Hit subscribe and the notification bell to continue this legendary quest. Now let's enter the mirror realm of infinite selves. The path from Foundation Town led through increasingly surreal landscape, where reality seemed to bend and fold upon itself like origami made from existence itself. Tang Sanzang noticed that his reflection in puddles and polished surfaces had begun to lag slightly behind his movements, as if the images were taking time to catch up with his presence. "Master," Wukong observed, his sharp eyes detecting anomalies that even his enhanced perception struggled to categorize. "Something is wrong with the way light behaves here. I see myself in surfaces that shouldn't be reflective, and sometimes the reflections are different." Indeed, as they continued along the path, their reflections became increasingly independent. In a stream's surface, Tang Sanzang glimpsed himself dressed not in monk's robes, but in imperial garments, his expression bearing the weight of temporal rather than spiritual authority. In the polished bark of a peculiar tree, Baji saw himself still in celestial form, unmarked by his fall from grace, surrounded by heavenly luxury. "We're approaching a realm where possibility takes physical form," Tang Sanzang realized, his transformed understanding allowing him to perceive the deeper patterns at work. "A place where all the paths we didn't take exist as real as the one we chose." Sha Wujing paused beside a crystalline rock formation within which he could see himself living peacefully by a river, never punished, never exiled, a version of himself that had never committed the offense that led to his transformation. Are we seeing what was, what might have been, or what still could be? He wondered aloud. As they crested a hill, the answer to his question became apparent. Spread before them lay a vast city constructed entirely of mirrors and reflective surfaces, its buildings and streets creating an infinite maze of reflected possibilities. But these weren't empty reflections. Each surface contained active scenes of alternate versions of their lives playing out in perfect detail. The mirror realm of infinite selves, Tang Sanzang read from a sign that itself was mirrored, creating endless recursive copies of the words stretching into impossible distances, where every choice creates a reality and every reality seeks integration. As they approached the city's entrance, they were met by a figure that was simultaneously familiar and alien, a version of Tang Sanzang dressed in rich merchant robes, his hand soft from a life of commerce rather than calloused from spiritual discipline. Welcome, fellow travelers. This alternate Tang Sanzang greeted them with a warm smile. I am the merchant Sanzang, keeper of the eastern gate. I represent the path of worldly engagement, the choice to serve others through prosperity and trade rather than through spiritual teaching. Behind him stood other figures that gradually resolved into alternate versions of each disciple. A Wukong, who had never been imprisoned under the mountain, wild and free, but also isolated and purposeless. A Bajie, who had successfully resisted temptation and remained in celestial favor, but who seemed somehow diminished by his perfection. A Sha Wu Jing, who had never fallen from grace, dutiful and honored, but lacking the depth that came from experiencing redemption. Don't be alarmed, Merchant Sanzang continued, noticing their expressions of amazement and uncertainty. Every being who enters this realm encounters the selves they might have been. The question is, what will you do with these meetings? What do you mean? Tang Sanzang asked, studying this successful but unfamiliar version of himself. Some visitors become paralyzed by regret, seeing in their alternate selves the lives they should have lived. Others become arrogant, convinced that their chosen path is superior to all others. But the wisest learn from all their possibilities, integrating the wisdom of choices made and unmade. The merchant Sanzang gestured toward the mirrored city beyond. Your presence here isn't accidental. Something calls you to understand not just who you have become, but who you might have been, and how all these possibilities can serve your eternal mission of wisdom and compassion. As they entered the city proper, the experience became even more overwhelming. Every street corner revealed new versions of themselves, living out different destinies. They saw a Tang Sanzang who had never left his monastery, becoming a scholar of infinite knowledge but limited experience. They witnessed a Wukong who had successfully overthrown the Jade Emperor, ruling heaven with just authority but terrible loneliness. In one remarkable plaza, they encountered a version of their group that had never met each other, each living out their individual destinies in isolation. The solitary Tang Sanzang possessed profound textual knowledge, but lacked the wisdom that came from teaching diverse disciples. The lone Wukong had achieved incredible power, but had never learned discipline through loyalty. The isolated Bajie had avoided all his painful lessons about desire and remained trapped in cycles of temporary satisfaction. The separate Sha Wu Jing served faithfully, but never discovered his own authentic strength. Each version has wisdom, observed the Tang Sanzang they knew, but none has achieved the integration that came through our journey together. More disturbing were the darker reflections, versions of themselves that had made catastrophically wrong choices. A Tang Sanzang who had abandoned his spiritual path for political power, wielding religious authority as a weapon of control. A Wukong whose rebellion had turned to pure destruction, bringing chaos without justice. A Bajie whose indulgence had become predatory, taking rather than sharing pleasure. A Sha Wu Jing whose obedience had become complicity with evil, serving without moral discernment. These shadows exist too. Acknowledge their Wukong, studying his destructive alternate with uncomfortable recognition. The capacity for these choices lives within us. But they also encountered luminous versions, possibilities that seemed to transcend even their current understanding. A Tang Sanzang who had become a Buddha in his own right, radiating compassion so pure it transformed entire realms through presence alone. A Wukong who had mastered not just his rebellion, but his need to rebel, becoming a force of perfect justice without ego. A Bajie who had integrated spiritual and material wisdom so completely that every sensory experience became a doorway to enlightenment. A Sha Wu Jing whose service had evolved into such profound understanding that he had become a foundation stone of cosmic harmony itself. And these possibilities exist within us too, Sha Wu Jing observed with wonder and humility. At the center of the mirrored city stood a single building that seemed to contain all reflections while reflecting none, a structure that appeared solid and real in a realm of infinite imagery. As they approached it, they were met by figures that were clearly themselves, but somehow more integrated, versions that seemed to contain awareness of all possibilities simultaneously. "We are the synthesis selves," these figures explained in voices that harmonized across all variations. "We represent not any single path, but the integration of all paths' wisdom. We have been waiting for you." "Waiting for us?" Tang Sanzang asked. "Your journey through infinite realities as eternal servants has brought you to a crucial point," the synthesis Tang Sanzang explained. "You have learned to help others integrate opposing forces, hope and caution, individual achievement and collective good, connection and healthy boundaries. Now, you must learn to integrate your own infinite possibilities." The synthesis Wukong gestured toward the mirrored city around them. "Every choice you've made excluded other possibilities. But in a realm of infinite service, you need access to the wisdom of all your potential selves. The scholar's knowledge, the ruler's authority, the rebel's courage, the servant's dedication, all these aspects exist within you and can serve your mission." "But how do we integrate possibilities we never lived?" Baji asked practically. "The synthesis." Baji smiled with an expression that contained both indulgence and transcendence. "By understanding that you did live them in the realm of potential that exists parallel to actualized reality. Your task now is to consciously commune with these alternate selves and learn from their experiences." What followed was perhaps the strangest educational experience of their entire journey. Each traveler spent time in dialogue with their alternate selves, learning from the victories and failures of paths not taken. Tang Sanzang discovered that his scholarly alternate possessed textual knowledge that could enhance his teaching, while his imperial alternate understood the practical politics of implementing spiritual wisdom in worldly contexts. Wukong learned from his chaotic alternate the importance of the discipline he had achieved while gaining from his perfect ruler alternate an understanding of how power could be wielded with justice rather than ego. Most surprisingly, he found wisdom even in his destructive alternate, understanding the seductive nature of pure rebellion and how to recognize when righteous anger might be turning toward destructive pride. Baji's integration proved especially profound. His celestial alternate reminded him of the spiritual heights possible through discipline, while his indulgent alternate showed him the consequences of appetite without consciousness. But most valuable was learning from an alternate who had found perfect balance, enjoying material pleasures as expressions of spiritual appreciation rather than escapes from spiritual responsibility. Xiao Wujing's dialogue with his alternate selves revealed the full spectrum of service, from unthinking obedience to conscious commitment to transcendent dedication. He learned from his never-fallen alternate the value of maintaining innocence, while understanding from his deeper versions how suffering could be transformed into wisdom and strength. The integration process wasn't merely intellectual. It involved a gradual blending of consciousness that expanded each traveler's capacity for understanding and service. They weren't becoming different people, but becoming more complete versions of themselves, with access to wisdom from paths both taken and untaken. This is overwhelming, Tang Sanzang admitted during the process. How do we maintain our authentic identities while integrating so many possibilities? Identity isn't a fixed thing, but a dynamic process. The synthesis Tang Sanzang replied gently. Your authentic self isn't the person you were, but the person you're becoming through conscious choice and continuous growth. Integrating alternate possibilities doesn't change who you are. It expands who you can become. The final stage of their experience in the mirror realm involved a profound recognition. Every being they had served and would serve also existed in infinite variations across the spectrum of possibility. Their mission as eternal servants wasn't just to help communities in this reality, but to understand how wisdom could serve across all possible realities. When you help someone choose hope over despair, the synthesis Wukong explained, you're not just affecting one person in one reality. You're strengthening the pattern of that choice across infinite possibilities. Your service ripples through the entire spectrum of existence. This understanding transformed their perception of their mission, from local help to cosmic significance. Every act of compassion, every moment of patient teaching, every gentle encouragement toward growth contributed to the evolution of consciousness across all possible realities. As they prepared to leave the mirror realm, now carrying within themselves expanded access to alternate possibilities and their wisdom, they were given a final gift by their synthesis selves, the ability to perceive when needed the alternate possibilities within others they served. Sometimes, the synthesis Xiao Wujing explained, the most helpful service involves helping people recognize their own unlived possibilities, not to create regret for paths not taken, but to access wisdom from all potential selves in service of growth. When they emerged from the mirrored city, the landscape around them seemed more solid and real than ever, but they now carried within themselves awareness of the infinite possibilities that existed parallel to every moment. They were the same four travelers who had entered, but they were also more integrated beings with access to wisdom from countless alternate selves. That was, Baji began, then paused, searching for words adequate to the experience. Necessary, Tang Sanzang completed, understanding now why their eternal journey had led them to this strange realm. We needed to understand not just who we are, but who we might be, so we can serve from the fullest possible understanding. And we learned that every choice matters not just in this reality, but across infinite possibilities, Wukong added, his appreciation for the cosmic significance of individual decisions greatly expanded. Xiao Wujing nodded thoughtfully. Perhaps most importantly, we discovered that growth involves not abandoning who we've been, but integrating who we might become with who we are. The path ahead led toward new communities and new opportunities for service, but they walked it now with expanded consciousness, beings who carried within themselves the wisdom of infinite possibilities while remaining authentically committed to their chosen path of eternal compassionate service. Behind them, the mirror realm continued its eternal function, helping other travelers integrate the wisdom of their alternate selves. Ahead lay whatever communities might benefit from servants who now understood that every moment of choice creates infinite ripples across the spectrum of existence, and that wisdom involves learning to serve from the fullest possible integration of all potential selves. And that concludes Chapter 40. Tang Sanzang and his disciples have completed their most mind-expanding adventure yet, learning to integrate the wisdom of their infinite alternate selves in the mirror realm. They discovered that true growth involves not abandoning who they've been, but expanding who they might become, and that their service ripples across infinite realities. If you enjoyed this exploration of possibility, choice, and the integration of alternate selves, please hit that like button and share your thoughts in the comments below. How do you think encountering alternate versions of yourself might change your understanding of your own choices? What did you think of the idea that our service affects infinite possibilities rather than just our immediate reality? Subscribe and turn on notifications to continue following our transformed heroes as they discover new depths of what it means to serve as eternal bridges between wisdom and need. Here at Celestial Scrolls, we're committed to bringing these profound tales of consciousness, expansion, and infinite possibility to life, one chapter at a time. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey through the realm of infinite selves and the integration of all possibilities. I'll see you next time as we continue with our heroes in their ever-expanding understanding of cosmic service.